and I don't want to keep everybody all night. So we'll just go ahead and get the show on the road. Hi there, my name is Kim Regis, also known as Coach Dr. Kim. And tonight we are going to be talking about protecting your pieces, growing your mental fitness. So originally, when I posted this, I was thinking, I'll probably have 10 or 15 people register and we'll just have a small group discussion. Well, to my surprise, as of today, we're up to 565 reservations. Woo, woo. And I was completely shocked, which is why I switched it to a webinar because I mean, if all 500 some people were to log on, or even half, that would be a lot of crowd control. So it turned into more of a lecture than like a group discussion. So forgive me for that, but we had to pivot. But there'll be more opportunities in the future to have some small group discussions. So today we're going to focus on learning more about what mental fitness is and how this day came about. So the first thing is I want to ground us in why we're here and how we're going to conduct the day. And there's still people coming into the room. And I know that even those who are already here, I please ask you to bring yourself into the room as well, your full self, mind, body, soul. Try to sit everything aside for a moment and focus. Take some deep breaths, myself included. I was nervous about today, still am, because I wanted to be responsible and accountable and bring this content to you. And I'm hoping that it's helpful for you. And then give yourself this time. Use it as a gift to slow down. We're also busy, we're moving nonstop. Just take a few minutes and give yourself a little bit of peace. And then, because we're in a virtual space and we can't really be together, as you use the not chat, but the Q&A or whatever communication we're going to have today, I'm asking that you be kind to yourself and to each other because things can get tense. I'm not expecting them to get too tense here, but you never know. But please be kind to each other. And if you feel triggered by anything we talk about, because I will talk about some current events in society today, just briefly, step away. I won't even know most likely, and you need to be kind to yourself. Take care of yourself first. And then lastly, hear me out before you tune me out. And I mean, I can't see you, so if you roll your eyes, you can do whatever you want, but please just listen to the end and take what you can use for yourself, and the rest, do what you will or may. So, welcome once again. And yeah, that's me. No glasses in my hand, but try to look a little cute that day. And like I said, we're going to be talking about mental fitness. But I wanted to explain how this day came about. I was looking through LinkedIn on a daily basis and seeing women, women of color, making a plea for change in society, um, for their voices to be heard. People were expressing grief, concern, anger. There were just so many things. And I am a big fan of Cy Wakeman, No Ego. And one of the things that she says to take us out of ego is to say, how can I help? What can I do to help? And I was like, well, I can't reach everybody, but quite possibly what I could do is share what I know about reframing situations and looking at them as an opportunity. And so that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to share some reframing practices and then present you with an opportunity. And to take it a step further, the events that I was seeing on LinkedIn were directly related to this. If you haven't heard, there's been a lot of attention about the way Black women are being treated in academia. And we know that racism, misogyny, all the isms and what so forth are alive and well in society today. Of late, it has really been hitting higher education. And there's a phenomenon called pet to threat. And I do give credit there to the researchers because they should give credit where credit is due so that you can read the full research there. And this graphic comes from Erica Stallings' article on Medium as well. Pet to threat essentially is when you go from being loved to disliked. And not because you did anything wrong, because you're shining. And maybe some of you have experienced that. In my long middle-aged life, I've experienced it in some instances. I know many of people that have, and not all of them are women of color, but many of them are. And unfortunately, it can have dire consequences. One of which was Dr. Antoinette Kendia Bailey at Lincoln University, who died by suicide. And this is probably one of the most profound reasons why today happened. The outpouring of mourning that I've seen on social media in regards to this has been enormous and justifiably so because Dr. Bailey asked for help. She did cry out for help. She did seek resources, and her cries were not answered. And now a life has been lost. And that grieves my spirit very deeply, and so many other people, especially people even that have experienced the same things that she did to some degree in the workplace. Dr. Claudine Gay resigned from her position under duress. I mean, that we watched that unfold before our eyes. And these were two women that studied hard to get their seat, and they earned it. And the fact that someone had to die because their mental health wasn't being addressed, and that it was frankly being caused to sour or go bad by workplace toxicity is just uncalled for and unconscionable. And many of you probably have a story somewhat similar. I have ones that I could share. But I found this quote: grieving people want and need to be heard, not fixed. And that resonated with me because that's the point of today, is not to fix you, not to fix me. We don't need to be fixed. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. What we need is for our voices to be heard. A writer named Lashana Lewis, she said, both tried to achieve something that was grand, Dr. Bailey and Dr. Gay. I've talked about the glass cliff and how when a company is failing and flailing, Black women and marginalized people are often put in the position to save the company organization. I saw myself reflected in what these two women faced, and I guess it got the better of me. And she said that in response to, she kind of disappeared off the scene for a moment and didn't write, didn't pour herself into her craft because these events took a lot out of her. And that resonated with me. The glass cliff also resonates with me. Black women, women of color, and women, we are fixers. We know how to get stuff done. And that does not mean that we should get dumped on and that when we fix it, it gets snatched away from us and we don't get to revel in the fruits of our labor and enjoy it. It gets passed on to someone else and then we get ousted. That has to stop. So we're going to try to do a poll, but technology doesn't always win out. But even if we can't, look at this stress continuum and on a scale, basically from 1 to 10, 0 to 10, 1 being joy and 10 is enough is enough. Rate your stress. We'll try to deploy the poll and see what happens. And while we're doing that, there's a couple people that want to talk. Let's see. I didn't know that could happen. Obviously, I'm not techie. Okay, Carol Candy, you still want to say something? You can unmute now.
Unmute. I can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear
Can you?
me? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I can
Okay,
hear
cool.
you. I
Okay.
would say I'm number nine. Chatting is not working for me.
Oh, okay. Did you have a comment though, otherwise?
No, well, I was trying to let you know that the chat wasn't
Oh,
working, so
okay.
I'll I'll
So
lower
you're
my
other than
hand.
that, you're
I,
fine.
I'm
Okay.
not too good at this either.
I know. I don't even I never done a webinar by myself, honestly. So we're just gonna learn together.
Okay, okay.
Yep. So we're gonna launch the poll and hopefully you can answer this one question. All right, I'll put you back on mute, Carol. All right. You might not know the answer to number three yet, so don't worry about that, but you will by the end of the presentation. Well, we're kind of all over the place so far. We do have some folks that are feeling pretty joyful, so I appreciate that. Send your energy through the airwaves, spread the love, because the majority of folks are sitting right around the middle. And we got some people that are in the I had enough. And I hear you, sis. I am right there with you, which is why we are here. We need to protect our peace. Okay. We got about 70% participation. It's going up. And when we get to about, give a couple more people time to respond, and then I'm going to close it out. When we get to 80%, almost. Two more people. Two more people. Answer the questions. 79%. I'm waiting on you. There we go. All right, let's see what we got. So looking at the stress continuum pictured here, um, we have most folks sitting right around the middle, and it's kind of almost a bell curve, but on average, we're trending more towards the completely stressed out side of things. That doesn't surprise me. Um, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. View detail. It won't let me do it. Oh, great. I'm trying to see what you guys answered for. Oh, what you answered for what's called the leading cause of your stress right now. We have finances, time management, grad school, frustration with management. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody's roof is leaking. That is awful. Staff shortages, too much work, cancer recovery. My prayers go out to you. Your boss, yeah. Family grief, loss of loved ones. I'll be praying for you as well. And I mean that. I don't say that cliche. workload, college. There's a lot. And then is it really possible to shift from saboteur to sage, even in tough times? 30% said yes, 70% said maybe. So once you find out what all that stuff is, I think that you're going to change your mind and you're all going to say yes. Now, if I can get out of here. All right. Can we see the PowerPoint again? I got a tech person helping me a little bit. There we go. All right. Okay, there we go. All right. So now that we know where we're at, I am validated that we need this information. So thank you for letting me know where we're on the right track. So then the question is stress good or bad? And the answer is it depends. It's not all inherently bad. There is, remember that bell curve I talked about? There is some good reasons we would have stress. Like tonight before this webinar, I was talking to my youngest daughter and I told her, I said, I am sick to my stomach because I'm so super nervous. And she said, well, that's good. It just means that you care about it. And so I would put that in the good stress bucket. And that means that I'm right where that green yellow line is because I'm engaged, I was motivated, being productive. But it's just a hairline fraction away, though, from being overwhelmed. And if you keep going, then you move into high pressure. And that's when you get into anxiety and burnout. And so this is something you want to keep in mind. Stress is not inherently bad. We need stress in order to perform. It's the kind of stress that can get to us, the type that we have to think about. You already answered that one. So, when it comes to stress, protecting your peace is an inside job. And I wanted to start with this because this is probably more familiar to you than what I'm going to talk about for the majority of this time. Growth mindset and fixed mindset. Growth mindset is when, you fail at something, maybe you didn't get a job or you didn't pass an exam and you say, well, I learned from it and I'll use those lessons for the next time. But a fixed mindset, you would say, I'm so stupid. I'll never learn anything. I'll never get a job. I can't do it. And I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And with the fixed mindset, you feel like you have nowhere to go. Nothing will ever change. And that could apply to those incidences that we talked about earlier. You could say, well, society will never get better. Women will never be accepted. Minorities will never be accepted. We're always going to be in this predicament. And so these are mindsets that we are impacted by, and we have to choose which one we're going to roll with on a majority basis. Now, the approach that I want to come to you tonight with is called positive intelligence. And if you've ever heard of emotional intelligence or even your IQ, they are measures of something. And positive intelligence is the percent of time your brain is working positively versus negatively serving you. It's the percent of time your brain is positively serving you versus negatively serving you. And this goes to that question, can we shift from negative to positive? And I'm telling you the answer is yes, but it's not a passive process. Negative emotions, they are only helpful for 1 second as an alert signal. And I'm going to prove it to you. Imagine that you put your hand on a hot stove and you experience a negative emotion, but you don't remove your hand from the hot stove because you're still experiencing the negative emotion and you leave your hand there. That emotion is no longer helpful because you're still burning your hand. The signal was to move your hand as fast as you can away from it so that you no longer get hurt. So we need these quote negative things in our life to alert us to when something is wrong, to alert us when there's danger. That's way back to the times when we used to be hunters, gatherers, foragers. You had to know when to run if you were being chased by a bear or a lion or whatever it may be. Um, but if you stay in that environment, the cumulative stress starts to wear on you and it hurts your ability to see clearly, be empathetic, curious, and to be focused. And that's when it begins to sabotage your life. And sometimes you don't even notice it because you're so steeped in it, it just becomes a part of the everyday. But we call that a saboteur. And that's very important to remember for positive intelligence because there's two main categories. There's saboteurs versus the sage. Lots of S's. The saboteur motivates you through negative emotions like fear, stress, anger, guilt, shame, and insecurity. Can you think of people that use that to motivate you? Maybe some of those bosses or colleagues or whomever you listed in the answer to that question of what's stressing you out right now. Those folks might use that to motivate you. And it will motivate you, but it also burns you out, wears you out, disrupts you, makes you emotionally drained and physically ill. The sage, however, motivates you through positive emotions like empathy, curiosity, creativity, passion, and purpose. Can you just imagine if someone motivated you that way? How about you? Motivate yourself that way. In order to be in the sage mindset, though, we got to know who the saboteurs are. And when I'm talking about all these personalities, they all reside within you. We have all of these things happening in our brain. So the judge is the universal saboteur. Y'all know some of y'all be judging. Don't be judging me right now. But the saboteur judge afflicts everyone. What is the saying? We're harder on ourselves than other people. It's the one that beats you up for everything. It warns you about future risk. It worries about everything. It fixates on things. Maybe in this webinar, I mess up and then all night long I say, oh my gosh, it was terrible. It was awful. Even though 100 people logged on, oh my goodness, it could have been better instead of fixating on the positive things that happen. And then your judge, on top of that, activates other saboteurs if that wasn't enough and it causes you a lot of stress and unhappiness and it reduces your effectiveness. And then it harms your relationships. It's just like a downward spiral. Those other saboteurs are on your screen now. And I'm going to talk about each of them a little bit. You can write them down or just make a mental note, but think about which ones are more prominent in you. So let's say the controller. A controller, someone who is assertive and likes to be independent, and they take it to the extreme, that saboteur, and likes everything to go their way. And if it doesn't go their way, then everyone is going to pay. It's their way or the highway. Has to be in this order, has to be done from step A to step Z, and there's just no way around it. Think about maybe someone preparing dinner and you try to help and they're like, get out of my kitchen. Then we have the hyperachiever. Oftentimes, that person is the sticker chart kid, me, or the one that tries to do every single activity under the sun or goes to school a million times over and over again, or seeking approval. That person wants to be validated in some type of way, or is just so super competitive, they always have to win. And then we have the restless person. That's the person that gets bored easily. They have a hard time focusing and they want to move on to other things, and it impacts their productivity. Please keep in mind that none of these mean you're a bad person. It's kind of like bias in a way, except these are saboteurs and we all have a piece of them. It's just that some people's are higher than others. I know somebody that's a controller. I know somebody that's a hyperachiever called myself. I know somebody that's restless called myself. And then we have the stickler who is a perfectionist. I know a lot of sticklers. That's not me, or else the chat would have worked probably. I'm a visionary, but sticklers, everything has to be exactly right. Pleasers, those are the folks who never say no and they resent you because they didn't, even though you don't know they're resenting you. The hypervigilant person, hmm, that's the person that is afraid to take risks. Maybe they have a checklist for everything, or they double, triple check and they don't want to go this place because maybe this will happen. And they just never take a leap of faith. And then the avoider, similar type of category, except that is a person that avoids maybe conflict because they don't want anything to go wrong or people not to like them. And then the victim. Some of you may not want to write that one down. I'm going to just be honest and tell you that is my top saboteur. There's an assessment you can take, and victim is my number one. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. And then the last one is hyper rational. That's you can rationalize anything. And so these are all the different styles and of saboteurs that have been identified through research. And we all have a piece of them. Now back to victim. The reason I want to deep dive into this a little bit because it provides a good example of how and when saboteurs develop. They usually develop at some point as a protective mechanism. So when I was young, I grew up around a lot of people that had alcoholism. And I also experienced over my lifetime a lot of people that died at a very young age from different chronic diseases. And internally and mentally, that can wear on a person. And you start to think, whoa, is anything good ever going to happen? Woe is me. Bad things only happen to me. It always happens to me. And you just wait. When the phone rings, you're thinking, oh, something bad is happening. When you said pagers, when your pager would go off, something bad is happening. When somebody knocks on the door, it's going to be a bad thing. And after time, it becomes to be this victim mentality that I am suffering and you should be concerned about me. And at the time that it was developing, it was relevant and helpful. But as I aged, it could alienate other people. And they're like, oh, I don't want to be around her. She's not fun. She's so melancholy and down and she drains me. All she wants to talk about is death. Oh my goodness. And so I had to learn some new skills. And hopefully through today, you can learn some new skills as well or apply some skills that you've previously learned, especially this one, the sage perspective. And that is our ultimate goal. And I know sage makes me think of like meditation, and it kind of is like that, but it's every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift and opportunity. And I know that sounds like rainbows and unicorns, but it's not meant to be toxic positivity. It's not meant to ignore that bad things happen. It's not meant to encourage you to pretend like everything is okay, because that's not what we should do. It is meant to encourage you to pause and reflect on what can be learned from your present situation. And is there a gift and opportunity in it? There will be some situations where you won't be able to see it, yet there are many where you'll be able to wade through that and figure it out. So let's try it. Imagine that you were going on a trip and it got canceled and you were really looking forward to it. and you're just sitting at home and you're stewing and you're mad. But then you think, well, I'm off work, I have some free time. I could use this to do something else I've always wanted to do. That's another way to reframe it. Or maybe there's some other event in your life that you can think of right now. So, what I want you to do is think of something that maybe disappointed you or something on that stress scale that made you put that you are about to lose your mind and you are over it, and bring that to your mind right now. And I want you to close your eyes. I'm gonna close mine. I know you can see me on camera, so I'm doing this for real. And I want you to take a few deep breaths. Just take one deep breath in and blow it out. And another one. And just picture that thing in your mind. Maybe you start to feel a little tightness in your chest, or you start to feel your jaw clench, you get a little uneasy. And when that feeling starts to surface, I want you to take two fingertips on one hand and start to rub them together. Rub them together with enough pressure that you can feel the ridges in your fingers. Just focus on each ridge and how it feels, all while breathing and focusing. Now I want you to listen to a sound that is very far away. Did you find it? Now find a sound that's very near to you, right by you. Might even be the sound of your breath. Mm. You start to wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. Take a deep breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and blink a few times. Okay. Well, I got pretty relaxed. I don't know about you, but I'm used to doing it. Might take you a little longer to drop into that. If you could put in the chat how that little brief thing made you, not chat, Q&A, uh, um, how that made you feel. But I wanted to do that to show you what a PQ rep is. A PQ rep is just 10 seconds of taking a break. And there's a lot of different methods you can use. And remember, PQ stands for positive intelligence. You can use touch, sound, smell, anything that takes you into yourself for just a few moments to kind of push out all the chaos. And I know you're probably thinking, well, that's the same thing as meditation, but it's not. It's similar, but it's not. And I'm going to tell you why. because you can also do this with your eyes open. For example, if you are talking to the boss that picks on you and drives you crazy, you can use their face to do a PQ rep. You can tune in to their eyebrow or their strands of hair, or maybe they have an earring on and you want to look at the details of the earring very closely. You take a sharpened focus to look at something to get you out of that visceral, deep, emotional saboteur mindset because your brain is getting hijacked. Your amygdala is taking over your emotions and you won't be able to think clearly. But doing a PQ rep allows you to ground yourself. And then you can say, I'm going to act out of sage and not out of saboteur. Let's see, we got some comments. Um, someone said the different saboteur ways sound like trauma responses. Very much can be linked to that. For some folks, it is a trauma response. And so this method, Shirzad Shamim is from Stanford, and this Hatu did the research on this. So it is very much used for trauma type situations. Somebody said they got sleepy, they feel more relaxed. I am so happy this is helping some people. Um, yes. And just look, it only took like 30 seconds. And it is something that you can do just in a moment. 10 seconds is all you need in that moment to reset your brain. So, here we go. And so it's called a saboteur interceptor. What's happening over here? Sorry, guys, 1 second. All right, saboteur interceptor. Let me go back. And so that PQ rep, basically, like when you pass a football in a game, not me, but when someone passes a football and they intercept the pass, the PQ rep intercepts that wave so that the sage can be activated and say, okay, what is the gift and opportunity in this situation? And then you have more self command on what choice you're going to make. And you're making it from a much calmer place. And it's getting into the habit of saying, okay, I'm triggered or whatever saboteur is happening. I'm going to do a PQ rep, whether it is rubbing the palm of my hand, breathing. I used to keep a picture of myself when I was like 5 years old on my phone during a period of time because that was my PQ rep I was doing, where I would look at her because she reminded me of the time when I was super happy. And I knew that that little girl was happy, then I'm happy because that little girl still lives in me. So just little things like that can really go a long way. And so whenever I was having a moment, I would look at that screensaver and see her little cute smile. And it reminded me that that girl who had big dreams and thought she's going to grow up and change the world is still inside of me. And nobody can take it away. And so the beauty of this system is if you're feeling negative emotions, just stop and say, I'm in saboteur mode. Judge, you need to shut up because you don't run me. You can even give yourself judge a name. I mean, that might sound kind of crazy, but I don't have one for mine. I just call it the judge. And I do talk to it. Um, do some PQ reps to quiet the saboteurs and activate your sage. You want to get into that Zen zone. My go-to pretty much is rubbing my fingers together, deep breaths, and if I'm alone, I could do the closing the eyes, but I like to use the ones that I can use in the moment. And then assume the sage perspective and ask yourself, what is the gift and opportunity? You may have to ask it out loud, you may have to write it down because the brain won't always shift to that, especially if it's not your default mode. Some people are just optimist by default. I am not. So this is why this works so well for me. And then generate the gift by using sage powers. So when I say generate the gift, I mean you think about being empathetic towards the person. So the best story I have is when I was in management years ago, first starting out, I had a direct report who was frustrated with her staff because one of them was always late. And so I didn't know that I was giving her a sage perspective at this time because I didn't have the words for it. But I told her, I said, why are you so upset she's always late? I mean, you know what you're supposed to do according to policy, and you can have a conversation with her, but why is it disrupting your mental health so bad? And she really couldn't explain it. And I said, well, how about this? Why don't you just imagine that she's out at night flying around the city like Supergirl saving small children? And she laughed. And I said, see, now you're not upset anymore. And I was kind of just being silly, but it worked for her. When the person was late, she was able to reframe it and then have a conversation with them without being angry because she wasn't their parent, she was their manager. So it really didn't make any sense for her to be mad. Hold them accountable, yes, but what was the sense of raising her blood pressure and getting all frustrated and upset? That would get her nowhere but high blood pressure and sick. And so using your sage will make you more curious, creative, calm, and clear. And it's just a nicer place to be. All right. So, am I going to do the stallion story? I think I am. It's a long story though. So, I don't know if I want to. Let's do it this way. I think many of you have probably heard it before, and I have to read it because it's that long. All right. So, here we go. The stallion. And this gives you an example of how you have to choose. The stallion. An old farmer lives on this farm with his teenage son. He also has a beautiful stallion that he lovingly cares for. The farmer enters his stallion into the annual country fair competition. His stallion wins first prize. The farmer's neighbors gather to congratulate him on this great win. He calmly says, who knows what is good and what is bad? Puzzled by his reaction, the neighbors go away. The next week, some thieves who heard about the stallion's increased value steal the horse. When the neighbors come to commiserate with the farmer, they find him again very calm and gathered. He says, who knows what is good and what is bad? Several days later, the spirited stallion escapes from the thieves and finds his way back to the farm, bringing with him a few wild mares he has befriended along the way. To his neighbors' excited rounds of congratulations, the old farmer once again says, who knows what is good and what is bad? A few weeks later, the farmer's son is thrown off one of these new mares and he is trying to break it in and his leg is fractured. As the neighbors gather to commiserate with the old farmer, he once again reminds them, who knows what is good and what is bad? The following week, the Imperial Army marches through the village, conscripting all eligible young men for the war that has just broken out. The old farmer's son is spared due to his fractured leg. The neighbors no longer bother to come to the old farmer to congratulate him. But by now they know what his response will be. Who knows what is good and what is bad? I mean, the point is, it's not that we are ever really wrong, but our view might be incomplete. In that story, there was a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of it seemed bad on the surface. And maybe the farmer's son did think the fractured leg was bad because he wanted to go to war to fight, but maybe he didn't because he was spared. So it's really hard to tell what's good or bad We have to decide because what's good for one person may be bad for another. And that is something that should be empowering for us to remember that we have choices. And you may be thinking it's not that simple to choose. And I'm oversimplifying it for sure. And we do have a choice. It all starts with a choice. So when you say which perspective is true, saboteur will tell you this is bad, it's always bad. Your sage will tell you this is a gift. And the answer is it's whichever one you believe, because where the mind goes, everything else follows. And so I'm not going to take us through another round of 10-second PQ reps, but I am going to ask you to take a few deep breaths and give me some more feedback in the Q&A of how things are going for you so far. Have you heard about positive intelligence? Do you meditate? Like what are you doing in your life right now? This is encouraging me to do some small groups because I want to talk to people. Hmm. Oh, good. Some people said it aligns with their modes. They haven't heard of it before. Oh, hi, Christy. You meditate and like to expand that. Journal each day. I'm not good at journaling each day, which is okay. I used to beat myself up about that too, but it's a choice. So instead of getting mad at myself, I do it when I want to do it. And I don't have to be perfect. I do it when it serves me. Okay, let's see what we got next. So this was the question that I asked earlier. Is it really possible to just shift from saboteur to sage response even in tough challenges? And most of y'all said, I don't know. Some of y'all said yes, but most said maybe. But the answer is yes. But the speed and the depth depends on your mental muscle strength. And that's what I was saying. It doesn't happen on accident. You have to be very intentional about it. And it takes practice because default mode is for the saboteur to jump in and run amok. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, Inside Out, maybe, where the little girl had the emotions personified like a cartoon and they were running around when she would get angry, things would run around like they were on fire or whatever, like that. I mean, so that's the saboteurs. They'll just come in and take over the show. So we have to shut them down, which means that to do that, we gotta strengthen the muscle. It's 80% mental muscle. I'm giving you the 20% insight right now. That's just knowledge, conversation, information. The rest of it is practice. That's the 80-20 rule. So, not besides this being one of my favorite pictures, it's reminding me to tell you a time when I had to make a choice. And many of you know this story. Well, some of you, I don't know who all's on here, but some of you know me personally. But a time when I had to make a choice about whether I was going to see something as a gift or an opportunity. A gift and an opportunity was when I had a stroke in 2015. I was 36 years old. I just ran a 5K a couple days before, healthy. No, I didn't have high blood pressure. No, I wasn't a smoker. No, there was no pre-existing conditions. I ran a 5K with my daughter, and a few days later at work, I had a stroke. I was taken to the hospital. I had brain surgery. I was in the ICU for 4 weeks, then transferred to an inpatient rehab where I had to learn some walking and retrain my memory and do all kinds of things. And then I was sent home off work for several more weeks. And it was a long recovery. For a while, my saboteurs were very loud. I'll never be well again. I'll never be independent again. My life is over. And I spent a lot of time crying, just sitting on the couch and crying. And then through prayer and encouragement and just being surrounded by people that cared, I was able to activate the sage. And it also happened because I discovered something called post traumatic growth, which I learned about before I learned about positive intelligence, but it all led up to this. When I learned that I could choose to see the stroke as a gift. Now, would I opt to have a stroke to learn lessons in life? No. I'm never not saying that at all. Like, ooh, sign me up. No, that's I wouldn't volunteer for it. And if I could do it all over again, would it erase it and not have a stroke? Yeah. Like that's silly. Why would I want to have a stroke and brain surgery? However, the things I learned from it were insurmountable. And because it did happen, it became a gift and an opportunity for me, for my family, my husband, my kids, extended family. We all grew closer in a lot of ways. My faith grew stronger, and I just got a new outlook on life, and my priorities changed. So I always say, well, I had a stroke so I could save you from having one. Hopefully, if you haven't had one already, but for having one in the future, because I was brought here to teach people how to ground themselves, decrease their stress, and to stay in sage because it really is a matter of life and death. Because what happens in our emotions affects our physical body, your cortisol levels, your heart rate, your memory, your everything. Like it kicks you into diabetes faster when you're stressed out. All these things are related. And women are at high risk for heart disease and all these other things to begin with. So it behooves us to do the things we can. It starts with our mind so that the rest can follow. I know we're always trying to lose weight and exercise or gain weight or do whatever. We all, look different because society tells us these things. Let's flip the script on that and not do it for vanity, but do it because we want to be better at performing at our jobs, performing at home, in our relationships, be closer to people in our relationships, and just do it for ourselves. And so just ask yourself, are you tapping into your sage and protecting your peace? What would change for you if you had more focus, energy, and clarity? And what is holding you back from achieving your goals? I mean, what if you could move further in life because you were more focused? It only takes 15 minutes a day. You don't have to sit in silence for 2 hours. And if that's all it takes, what's stopping you? I know what's stopping you. It's one of those saboteurs. But the sage can win out in just 15 minutes a day. That's all I do. And I do some other stuff too, but you gotta, you know, grow with me there. So we are about to wrap up, but we're not going to be done because I'm going to send you some information. I have some workshops coming up. Um, I have a course coming up. It's going to be very small and intimate, very small group. I'm thinking 15 to 20 or even less than that. And so I'm going to send you this information. So you don't need to write it down feverishly. You should expect it in your inbox by tomorrow. I'm at a conference actually right now, but You can use the QR code on your screen if you want to go to see some of the other things I have to offer. I wrote a book a long time ago that I didn't really advertise very much. It tells the whole story about my stroke and the recovery process. And then I'm planning to do a whole mental fitness coaching workshop starting on February 21st. And when I send you this email with the information, the discount code will be Peace 2024. I'd appreciate it if you don't share it with everybody. Just use it for yourself on this webinar because that's your perk for coming to the webinar and being the early adopters, but it will give you 15% off the course. So I think that's all I have for you today. And that's the copy of my book. You can find it on Amazon. Also have a podcast. The old episodes are up and live. A new season will be kicking off here soon. Life got really crazy for me. Last summer, I became a full-time entrepreneur. So that takes a lot of sage because saboteurs are, ooh, they're in full drive. And I started a nonprofit, the Perfecting Project Incorporated. It is conceptual right now, but we did get our 501(c) status approved. And then my consulting business, Kim Regis Consulting, has been off the ground for a few years. And then Empower Her Spirit is the name of the mastermind program that will be coming your way very soon. So the bottom line is I wanted to bring you this content to introduce myself to you, to hopefully help you have some skills to get some peace and clarity and to start building a relationship so that you can hear from me more often. And to be honest, to practice, because this makes me nervous. I'd rather be on a stage or something. Like I like performing in front of a room with people, which is very bizarre because it should be easier, but I can't get feedback the way I want it on virtual. So this is a little challenging. And if you didn't know, I'm a preacher too. And so I like to hear the amens and the claps and the something. There needs some something, something happening in the background. So this was a big lift for me, but I feel like it was good. It was good for me. I enjoyed it and I'm glad that you came. So I hope you have a good evening and look for that email tomorrow. And let me see before I head out of here if we have anything else we need to answer. Oh, yes, God was with me the entire time when I had that stroke. Yes, if there's so much of that story. Even if you buy the book and read it, please. But if not, you can call me. Does somebody want to talk? I don't know. I can't tell by these raised hands. Cindy Ortiz, can you put in the Q&A? Oh no, you said clap, clap. Okay. All right. There is a recording, yes. And so I'll send all that out in the email. We did record the whole thing, and I will make sure you all get all the resources. And thank you for being patient with me. This was my first go around, and so I just appreciate the grace because women need to empower women and hold each other up, and it all starts with us. So thank you so much and have a good night, everybody. Bye bye.